Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Electric Bike Journal. In today's video, we're going to be diving into the Niner RLT E9 RDO. It's been a long time coming and this bike is officially ready to be swapped over to tubeless tires. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a conversion here where we'll walk you through that process and what it looks like to convert a bike to tubeless. And if you're already ready for tubeless tires, how simple it is to get that switched over. So stay tuned as we dive in. Now, something that we're looking forward to with doing this tubeless swap on the Niner here is trying out these RSN tubeless valve stems. It's a 2-pack and they come in this pretty neat red anodized color here. They're hollow on the inside there, so if you pull the valve core out of it, you have a nice hollow spot there to put your sealant in. And just like any tubeless valve stem, on the bottom here, you have this nice big seal that will go onto the inside of the rim, an O-ring, and then this nut that you can tighten down onto the hoop and pinch it all together. Well, for those of you interested in doing a tubeless conversion, the first place you're gonna have to start is making sure that your rim is tubeless ready or tubeless capable. Rims actually are specific in the way that they're designed to be able to hold a tubeless tire. Now with the wheel off, I'm gonna go ahead and use my valve core tool and remove the core from these tubes to let the air out a little bit faster. As far as doing this process, you really only need one tool to make this job complete. There are a few extra tools that if you have them available, it'll make the process a little bit easier. But aside from a bike pump, this whole task is something that you can do with only a tire lever. I'm gonna start by pinching the tire to de-seat it from the rim itself. And that'll let me pull this tire off the rim the easiest way possible. Like I said, a bike pump is the only real tool that you need to do this task, but if you happen to have tire levers, it's gonna make removing your tire and putting the new tire back on extremely easy. Tire levers are specifically designed here with a nice lip to be able to catch the inside of the tire and pry it over the hoop. And they'll have a nice little spot on the backside too, so that way it doesn't get sucked underneath the tire too far. It gives you a nice pry ledge there. And then a lot of them have this nice little hook on the other side to be able to pry it over and hook it on a spoke. So that way you can grab your other tire lever and continue to pull the rest of the tire off. In using the tire levers, I like to start opposite of the valve stem. So I'll go to the opposite side of the tire here, and you'll take your lever and be able to stick that underneath the tire. And if you have two levers, you can put that further over. And by lipping the tire over, now you can start to pull that off the bead. Now earlier I mentioned pinching the tire to get it off of the bead. Well, the bead of the tire will sit up high on this shelf on either edge, and it has a little bit of a lip that hooks on this part of the rim that goes up. So when you pinch it, you put it into this low spot here, which creates more slack in getting the tire loose to pull it off of the rim. Equally, that works the same way in putting the tire onto the rim, is that you start by trying to have the bead of the tire in that low spot there, because that's going to be a smaller diameter to give you more slack to get the tire over that high spot of the rim. Well, in preparation of getting this wheel ready for a new tire and tube sealant, I'm going to go ahead and take a clean rag and clean the inside of the rim. If you previously had tubeless sealant and already had a tubeless tire, there's a good chance that there will be sticky old sealant all over the inside of this. If you use isopropyl alcohol on a rag, you can actually rub that off pretty easily. And when you are switching out for new tires in an already tubeless setup, getting rid of all of that old dry sealant is just gonna ensure that you have a better surface for the new sealant to seal up the best way possible. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention for those of you that are interested in converting from a tube setup to a tubeless setup, outside of whether or not your rim itself is tubeless ready, tubeless tape is different than a rim strip. A rim strip is just a piece that goes in there to protect the tube from getting kind of stabbed or skewered by the spokes if they were to go through, and on those sharp drill holes where the spoke nipples are attached in the rim there. On the Stan's wheels, they come with a tubeless strip in there already, so that's a nice clean surface. I'm just gonna go ahead and check where that valve stem goes in there and see if there's any splits or tears in it. Those are gonna be spots where air can get in or air could leak out, and that wouldn't be something that we want, because that means we're just gonna get flat tires down the row. So everything looks good on this wheel. We're gonna go ahead and get that new valve stem in there, and they might be cheap, but they look pretty good. and we'll see if they hold up a nice tight seal. Get this open to fit through that hole there. Like I said, it has a nice rubber seal on the backside there that'll fit into the hole for the valve stem. And then you're gonna put your O-ring on, kind of two different sides to the nut that goes on there. And you'll see the inset side of that, which is host to that O-ring to keep that in place. So I go ahead and just screw that on there and get it nice and tight, and that'll compress the valve stem on the inside of the rim to create a nice tight seal. Some of them you can actually take a maybe a 9mm wrench or so and tighten them down to get them real snug, but for the most part you'll be able to tighten it down with just finger strength. These SCHWALBE G1 Ultra Bites are tubeless ready, and they are indicated so on the sidewall of the tire. Nice little marking on there that says TLE. That's just SCHWALBE's way of saying, hey, this is a tubeless ready tire. Every brand will probably have its own way of saying that, but if you do happen to get SCHWALBE's, look for that TLE badge. That's the one that'll tell you it's a tubeless tire. Now, we've mentioned this in the past. Always be sure to check that your tire is going onto the wheel in the right rotational direction. On the sidewall of your tire, it will actually have an arrow that says that the tire is designed to roll in a certain direction. These Ultra Bites are bidirectional, so I don't have to worry about that with these tires, but the tires that I took off there were directional, and I had to make sure that they were on the right direction. All the same, we have mentioned this in the past, this is a preference. You do not have to do this. It might make the tire easier to put on the rim, but for us, we like to line up the logo of the tire with the valve stem. It just makes a nice clean look, and it's a great way to index your tire with a really notable marker. So if you do get a puncture or have something going in your tire that causes a flat, if you were to take that tire off, you can actually trace it back and see where it was at on the hoop and be able to look at the rim itself to see if any other damage was done to the wheel beyond the tire. If it is a tube tire, it's a great way to look for your puncture spot for a hole if you need to patch that out on a ride. But for us, it's always a good place to start with having the logo line up with that valve stem there. So that's what we encourage other people to do. And with our tire halfway on, we're gonna go ahead and go to the opposite side of the valve stem there and start putting on the other side of the tire. One of the only reasons why we would encourage someone to try to get the tire onto the hoop without using a tool is that you are risking that tire lever actually puncturing that tape, which would be bad. That would let air in and air out and just be a spot that could cause your tire to not hold air after doing all that work. So if you are able to get the tire onto the wheel without using a tool, you're just avoiding and navigating away from accidentally puncturing that tape on the inside of the rim. That'll save you a little bit of time and a little bit of heartache. Well, now that the tire is installed on the wheel, it's time to add the sealant. And there's no better way to top off a SCHWALBE tire swap than with some of the Doc Blue. This is a really fantastic sealant that I've been using for years. And what's cool when you buy the Doc Blue is you get this large bottle that will do many tubeless swaps and tubeless refills. But you also get this measured out size, which you fill up, and there's a little guide on there to tell you how much sealant you need for your tire size. You can add it to this, close that up and put it back on the shelf, and that's all you'll need to use. So we're gonna go ahead and fill this up and use only this so we don't have this bulky thing in the way. What I'll do is I'll rotate that valve stem up to the top there and put the rotor to the outside away from you so you can lean the wheel in towards you. You really do not want to get sealant onto your disc rotors. That'll cause a big problem having sealant on your brakes. So just be mindful of that. And if you are worried about it at all, you can always wrap a rag around that to protect it further. So with that wheel leaned toward us and making sure that the tire is equally on both sides of that valve stem, I'm gonna go ahead and spin that around and give that bottle a few squeezes to get the sealant into the tire. Now with the sealant in there, you have a few options on how to air the tire up. Now this is a tricky moment for doing a tubeless tire install on a wheel because you need to inflate the tire rather quickly to allow that bead to pop and snap into place on the rim. I happen to have an air compressor, and if I leave the core out of the valve stem there, I can put the nozzle of the air compressor on there and quickly add a lot of air to snap that tire in place. And then I can just kind of hold pressure on the open side to keep all the air in there as I install the core back into the valve stem. If it's a very tight tire on that seal, you could probably get away with just doing a standard hand pump, or if you have a battery powered one, that likely will be enough to get that on there. But this is the moment where you might need some help or some compressed air on hand, something to allow that tire to get air quickly to snap into place to hold that seal. But you don't want to overdo it if you are using an air compressor. Just a few quick taps just to get that tire to seat on there. And you'll hear it snap and pop into place, and you'll be able to verify there's a nice little rubber kind of imprint on the outside of the tire there near the rim that'll allow you to see whether or not the tire is evenly up on the lip, which will let you know that that tire has seated on the bead. But right now I'm just using my finger to keep the air in there, and I have my core available, and my core removal tool will now become a core install tool. I'll go ahead and move my finger out of the way and screw that valve stem in there as fast as possible. And once that's in, you can use that tool to tighten it down, and hopefully you're able to do it fast enough to not let too much air out and save yourself some trouble of having to pump it all the way back up again. This is just a basic overview on doing a tubeless swap and getting your wheels ready for tubeless tires. The bigger takeaway from this is what are the benefits of tubeless versus tubed. For us, we enjoy tubeless setups because if you are to get a nice little puncture or slash in your tire, the thought is that the tubeless sealant will go to that hole and help plug it, and this will save you time from having to take everything apart and patch a tube. And when you're on a gravel bike like this or out riding really aggressive roads, saving time from not riding to fix something versus actually riding because what's in the bike is doing its job, you're gonna be thankful in the end. Well, thank you very much for watching, and thank you to SCHWALBE Tires for partnering with us on this series. Best of luck in your tubeless ventures. We'll see you in the next one.